Hey there, I'm Laura Brandenburg from Bridging the Gap, here today with Paula Bell. Hi, Paula.
Hello, hello, hello.
Yeah, so Paula just started as our Director of Operations. When we're recording this, it's close to 4 months ago. By the time you see it, it might be 5 or 6 months. And we thought it would be fun to record a video about what it's been like from both of our experiences. This has been a new role for Bridging the Gap, a new role for Paula. And I felt like, I know for me, hearing from other business owners about how they're building their team is always really exciting and illuminating. And I think also for anybody in our, we have a lot of business analyst professionals in our community, hearing how that set Paula up for her path to Director of Operations, or if you're just considering working for a smaller company or exploring different career pivots, it could be really interesting to hear about her journey into this role as well. So we were just gonna sit down and chat. We have a few questions and topics we want to cover, but we're gonna just see where this goes. So Paula, we thought it would make sense to start with how we met originally, which when we've tried to talk about it, we're both like, oh, wait, I'm not really quite sure exactly, but I know it was at a BBC, or for those, building business capability conference several years ago now. And I think you were part of a contest, right? You were trying to take pictures with all the speakers.
Exactly.
Is that how you remember it?
Yeah. So, yeah, I had to send you that picture because when I was looking at pictures, that one just popped up. But yes, it was maybe, I don't even know. I can't even say what year. I'm not even going to try and say what year it was where we met at BBC. But yeah, so one of the contests that they had so that you could win some sort of gift card was to take pictures with all the different speakers. And so you were one of the speakers that year. So I took a picture with you. But I really believe where we connected was, I remember it was the year the Iowa chapter was the chapter of the year. And we were about to take a picture by the banner. And I was sitting at a table and you were walking over and we just started chatting. And that's initially how it began. It just started with us just chatting. Now, what we were chatting about, I can't tell you, but I know we were chatting about something. And then from there, that's all I know. I don't even know the rest of the story, how we even stayed connected or anything, to be quite honest.
My recollection, because I can remember the table that you were at, and so I don't remember the Iowa part, but I remember that. But I feel like I came away from that BBC and that connection feeling like I was going to talk to you about being an instructor for Bridging the Gap, which is really the first way that we officially worked together. Or possibly at that time we were offering a variety of career mentoring programs as well, and it might have been supporting some of those. And I feel like you had prior experience in training and instructing as a business analyst, and that just blew my mind. I was like, wait, I could have some help with this. So yeah.
And I don't even remember how that connection really happened, though. I don't remember if it was you emailed me or if we connected on a social media platform or what have you. I do remember the initial, just conversation about being an instructor and what that would be. But I had no idea from there, which was probably about 6 years ago, I'd be here where I am today. That wasn't even in my mind at that point in time. I almost really looked at being an instructor as simply a side hustle in a way, as a way to get back to the BA community, make some extra money. My kids were small at the time, so it was just a good way to bring in some extra income while giving back to the business analyst community. But how it's morphed since then has been pretty amazing.
I wish I could say I had the foresight to know we'd be where we are today, but I also had no clue. I think at that time we had Doug was already an instructor, right, when you joined? And I can't remember, was Disha an instructor as well?
She was.
Okay, so
I think she was.
All right.
And you had another instructor who's no longer an instructor now. So
okay.
I do believe I might have come in some point in between that time frame.
Yeah. So we had a bit of an instructor team, but definitely not the team that we have today. Definitely not the processes we have today, which we can talk about a little bit too. I must have been looking to expand the team, and I know we had a great connection. I just remember feeling really confident about that initial connection. So you shared a little bit about why you took the instructor role. Is there anything else you wanted to share about that? Like what was appealing to that role, about that role for you?
It was something different. I had not really ever been an official instructor before. I mean, I was a mentor, and I actually got out of mentoring because at the end of the day, what I found is I was mentoring a lot of people, but I was giving out a lot of resources, but not getting a lot back in. Let's put it that way. And I was trying to build my own business at the time too. I wanted to expand my business, get more visibility speaking and things of that nature. And so I had to really prioritize where I wanted to focus. And the instructor part was really appealing to me because it took me out of my comfort zone. So a lot of people see me speak and they'll say, you know, you're confident, you're engaging, but what people don't know is I'm a nervous wreck before I hit the stage. And a lot of that is because I used to stutter when I was younger. And so I had a fear of speaking. And the instructor was another way for me to speak, but in a different way, to where I'm teaching and I'm helping individuals understand concepts and get things in their mind, change their mindset on certain things, help them increase their toolkit. And so I thought it was very interesting. But I will tell you, I remember doing my first instructor hour, that was nerve-wracking. And data modeling instructor hours were always the hardest ones. And so every time I signed up for one of those, the amount of prep work that I would do, because you just don't know what people are going to ask you. But I like that because it's the unknown that's where the fear comes in. So it was helping me get over that fear, but also giving back to a community. So it was appealing to me for a couple of reasons. It was strengthening me as an individual. So I was gaining new skills. And then I was also able to give back to the VA community as well. So I think that's really what was the appealing part to it. And the Bridging the Gap company, I had respect for. So if I was going to put my time and resources into something, I wanted to put it into a company that I respected. And so though I didn't know everything you offered and everything you did, I knew enough to know that this would be a good place to put my energy. So yeah, that's how that started.
Sure.
And so you say that you had this, I'm so glad you remember the conversation, Laura. I do not remember everything you talked about, but you had a good feeling when you walked away. I love to hear that, right? I like to hear people have good energy for me.
It felt like it was a gut decision, for sure.
Yeah.
Like
so
today.
What was it about?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, like, what was it from that when you walked away from that conversation? What was it that was like, yeah, she would be an ideal instructor for BTG?
I wish I could tell you. That was such a long time ago. But I just remember like a strong gut. You know how sometimes you can remember how you felt, but you don't actually remember what happened. That's how I feel about that. But I will say, like, to that point, that feeling has continued to like evolve and expand as we've expanded your role within the company. And there's always just been this gut feeling like that, yeah, Paula would be the great fit for this next thing that's opening up. So, and I feel like it's often been your commitment and your dedication and the skills that you bring, as well as just your motivation and compassion and passion for the role. So there's a lot of factors to that. I'm sure that showed up in that initial conversation, but I can't say I remember specifically. Yeah, in the early days, for anyone listening, I made many of my instructor hires very much based on my gut. Some of them were amazing and some of them not so much. And now we have a very structured process that we know brings us in great instructors. So if you're watching this and be like, how do I just get it? Like, we have an actual process now. So it's very different. And it also, I think, really helps the instructor understand what's expected. Because I know when you started, it was like, oh, just go ahead and review these workbooks and, give them some feedback, right? Was pretty much the instruction. And so we've come a long, long way, which is a great segue, actually, I think, into the program manager role, because that was the next role that you stepped into. You'd been an instructor for a couple of years. And then I opened up this opportunity for program manager because it was becoming a lot for me to manage the marketing and manage the business analyst blueprint program. And as we had more instructors coming in, we were starting to see not total inconsistencies, but just people were doing things in different ways. And, there was not a lot of standardization. And so that program kept demanding more from me from a delivery perspective. And I felt like I needed some help with there. So that's my recollection of why I originally created that role. I remember sending you this email with like, here's a new role I'm thinking about. Like, I think you'd be great for it. What do you think? And you were like, I need to think about this one. Right. Yeah.
You're right. Yeah. So at the time you sent me that role, I was very heavily involved in expanding my own business as well. And so I think at that point in time, I had rebranded myself for a while as the BA martial artist. There were things that I was going into and delving into, and I was working a full-time job. And so I was like, oh, good grief, how am I going to handle all of this? So I was hesitant at first when I saw everything. And I think initially I might even have passed, or I might have I've worded it in such a way where it came off as I had said no, right? And then you were like, well, let's talk about this for a little bit. Let's go through it and let's talk about it and let's see if because there was so many different things. I think I had made a comment, is some of these items something that others can do that's not necessarily on me? And so we went through it. And when we started to go through it and talk through the actual expectations in that role, and we started to think about who else on the team could potentially do some of the items, it began to become more feasible for me to do, to where I didn't feel like, because what I didn't want to do was take on a role and not give what was needed for that role and not be successful in that role with everything else I had going on, because I was still very focused on expanding my business because my goal was to leave corporate. So I had that goal in my mind that I wanted to leave corporate America, and I wanted to go into roles that more aligned with what I wanted to do with my life going forward, right? And so I'm glad I did it. It wasn't nowhere as much as I thought it was going to be. We came up with a really good process to get things done, and we started getting more consistency and standardization, like you said, and the instructors were all in, right? The feedback, because the instructors are phenomenal. So the feedback from the instructors and the insights and the things that we should do to change was great. We did business analysis on our own business analysis platform, right? So we were doing BA work as well. And it's been great. It's been, at first it was a little bit, again, challenging, because I went into the role and now I'm going a little bit deeper into your business. So being an instructor is one thing. Okay, I have a workbook, I have guidelines, I have things that I need to look at. Okay, now you want me to actually run the blueprint delivery, right? The blueprint program delivery. And I'm like, ooh, I don't know, I'm not into the actual scheduling and all that. So I remember being on a call where we're creating a schedule would take us hours, and now we've got that thing down to such a well-oiled machine. I can knock out a schedule in 30 minutes to an hour and get the next schedule ready for the next session, right? So it's been the things that we've been able to do to elevate the company to the next level, to provide phenomenal and exceptional service to the customers we serve, has been great to watch, and to know that I was a part of that groundbreaking has been kind of amazing too, because I don't think I've sat down enough just to think about, we've done a lot over, and I've only been with the company for like 5 to 6 years. It hasn't been like I've been with you for 25 years, right? I've only been with you for 5 to 6 years, and we've transformed 3 times in that 5 to 6 years, right? And we continue to. So it's pretty amazing. And I was honored for you to think that I would be great for that next role, because I know when I started as an instructor, I was making some mistakes and things of that nature. But when you came to me with that, I mean, why did you feel that was the next step for me to go, that I would be the next good fit? Because you had other instructors. Why did you feel that I would have been the next good fit for that role?
What stood out to me specifically for that was because we have obviously all of our instructors are great business analysts. Otherwise, like, training other business analysts isn't a great fit. But I don't remember exactly what you did, but it also just was apparent to me you were also a great project manager. And so the program manager role, yes, there was like procedure development, but it was also very much a project management role. And I feel like that has also carried you into the director of operations role, right? It's also very much a project management role. So I saw you as somebody who could wear both of those hats very well. And I don't exactly remember what it was that you were doing at the time that showed that to me, but I know you were doing event planning, and there was a confidence I had in your project management abilities that to me made you stand out for that particular role. And I would say in addition to that, I don't know if I was aware of it at the time, like consciously, but maybe unconsciously, like your leadership and ability to manage others and build relationships with others, and just like the teamwork part of it, which has been essential as we've grown as well. So.
And that's a hard thing, right? When you're working with your peers and then you actually, okay, so now you actually ask all your questions to Paula, right? You don't go to Laura or to the ops team. You go to Paula. And I've had that happen in my career before. And sometimes that's hard when you're like a peer and then now you're the lead, and just going into that. What was really cool though, is all the instructors were all supportive about it, all behind it, loved it, and the ops team too. And so I didn't have that feeling as if anybody had felt slighted or anything like that. It was sort of a totally different shift where it was all about the support. And the same thing happened when I moved into the DOO role. The support was amazing on the team, because again, you just don't know. And everybody was just, this will be amazing for you. This will be awesome for you to do. So it feels good when that happens. And I think that was probably maybe my biggest concern is how would the team take it as I've made these shifts. But we have such a great culture here that it's not about competition or anything like that. It's just doing what you love to do.
Yeah.
And that's amazing in itself. The environment's amazing.
Yeah, I do have a question for you that I would think other people thinking about this way of making a pivot might be wondering, like how, and I know you get this a lot, like how do you do everything you do, but really like how did you manage to work a full-time job, build your own business? And you were working in the program manager role. It was like 5 to 10 hours a week, but like I remember one of the things I felt really strongly about was like, we need to have meetings during the day. Like I'm not able to do like evening meetings for this role. So like we still have instructor meetings sometimes in the evening, but like our day-to-day interaction needed to be during daytime hours. Like how, and I know that was not an easy thing to sign up for initially. So how did you make all that work?
So I do get asked this question a lot, like how on earth are you able to do all the things you do? And you have to manage your kids, right? So I have kids too and a family too. You have all that involved. Really and truly, you have to set boundaries. You have to prioritize. And I am run by my calendar. So if it's not on my calendar, it pretty much doesn't exist. I literally put everything on my calendar. And when it comes to work, how it worked really well is because in my day job, I worked with so many different time zones. So a lot of my meetings would happen mid-morning up into early afternoon, and then I would be pretty much okay. So when it came to certain meetings we had, one-to-ones or webinars that I needed to be on, I just needed to make sure those were on my calendar early enough. And the thing that was good for me is I was in a position in my day job high enough where I could control my calendar, where I can say I have another meeting like over the lunch hour or something like that, and then there was sometimes I couldn't because of where I was in the organization, I had to be on certain calls, especially if issues came up or something like that. It's just having that flexibility and then having a backup plan, having people that can help you and support you if you can't be there, or being flexible. You were really good on being flexible. We were able to rearrange things relatively easy, but for those things we couldn't rearrange, like kickoff meetings, recap webinars, credibility boosters, I would put those on my calendar ahead of time. And if somebody would schedule something over it, I just couldn't make it, because those meetings weren't meetings that happened every single week. It happened once in a 5-month period, right? So I didn't feel as bad about that when I did that. But what I'd have to tell people is you have to set boundaries. I've watched people say, well, I can't tell them I can't be on this meeting, or I can't do this. And I'll ask them why. And a lot of times it's just fear, because they feel that if they say they can't do something, they're going to get in trouble for it. But there were times, and I didn't explain I would just say I have another meeting or I have a conflict. I didn't have to go into a ton of detail. But it is a little bit different depending on what type of role you have. And if you're trying to do a day job and do a side hustle, depending on where you are in the organization, your options may be limited on how flexible you can be. But I think because of where I stood in the organization, I had a little bit more flexibility on my calendar, even though, to be quite honest, people still put stuff on the calendar regardless of what you said. But I would send a delegate or have somebody else cover for me. But it is a lot of prioritization, setting boundaries, saying no, all of that. And you saw my journey of saying no, because I was very bad at saying no when I started with Bridging the Gap, and now I don't have a problem with it going forward. So I had to. You've seen my journey of the things that I've had to implement to be able to do the things that I want to do, even with my business and things of that nature. So it's been interesting, but yeah, definitely set your boundaries and let them be known and prioritize your time. And as long as you're delivering and you're producing what you need to produce, a lot of managers are cool. As long as you get your job done, just get your job done. But if you're not a good performer, that's where you're going to come into issues, because they're going to say, well, if you can't even do this, how are you doing this and that? And so that could be a problem.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I know, there were times we had to adjust something, which was fine. And, that was part, I think for me, one of the big shifts to the director of operations role, realizing I can ask Paula to meet anytime, not anytime, right? Because you still have other things going on. But there was definitely that constraint on my end, knowing, I'm really only, as a business, we have her 5 to 10 hours a week. So I can't just on a whim say, Paula, let's have a meeting on Thursday and have it happen. We need to plan these in advance, and there needs to be some flexibility. So from a business owner perspective, I think it's a great asset to have people who are doing side hustles, and there's some flexibility that's required to make it work on your end as well. So, but it was important to me to be clear on what my boundaries were, because I knew I didn't want to be doing evening or weekend type work for the most part, but I could have some flexibility during the day. So that's where our medium was in terms of meeting each other's boundaries.
You're right. You're definitely right.
So I feel like we should shift gears to the director of operations role. And that, was there anything you wanted to say about program manager before?
Oh, no. Let's definitely go to the DOO role.
The exciting part, right? So
yes.
This has been I feel like it was something that I had wanted in my business for at least a few years, and always just felt like the real grown-up entrepreneurs had director of operations or integrators or chief of staff, whatever they called them, right? So it had been there in the back of my mind for a long time. And then my recollection, I remember putting it on an org chart and being like, it's happening next year. And this was probably in 2021. And I was and presenting it to our core team, and just so you know, this opportunity is out there. I really think next year is going to be the year that I hire for it. And so if you're interested, let me know. And you were like, Laura, I'm interested in that. That's my memory. Is that how you? Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. So you had it on an org chart, and then I don't know if I said it on that call or if I would have said it in our one-to-one, but I do remember saying I am interested in it because this would be a great transition for me to get out of corporate. Now, let me be clear. You are still corporate, you're corporate America, right? I just don't put you in the same as I put other corporate America. And the reason I say that is because the culture is very different here. So what I was really trying to get away from was working in a culture where I just felt I couldn't strive to my optimal, to what I know I could do. And I really wanted to focus on my own business because I love what I do in my own business. And at some point you have to break away in order to focus on that. And I felt when you had this, I was like, this actually could be a really good thing to do. And the reason I thought it was a good thing to do, there was a couple of reasons. Some of it was selfish, and then others was, so selfishly, I didn't want to leave my day job. So I did want to get out of that. It was time. It was time for me to leave. My kids were about to graduate from high school, and I'd always said when they graduated from high school, I wanted to shift into doing my own business. But what I thought was interesting about this role is the way also our companies kind of work together in a way, right? So you do training. I don't have to do BA training. I could send my clients who might be interested in that, go to BTG. It's already created. I don't need to do this, right? I don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't do the coaching aspect of it. That's the part I love. I love the coaching aspect of getting to know people, interacting with them, helping them work on projects and stuff. So I was like, this could be a great segue into me actually doing what I want to do, leaving corporate, but I'm still involved in a company that is aligns with my values and the things that I like, and I can still help. And I have a loyalty to Bridging the Gap, right? So it wasn't like I could just leave Bridging the Gap that easy. I mean, you probably have to fire me. So it's just not like I'm just gonna come up one day and say, Laura, I'm done. I just want to quit, right? No, I just don't see that. And you're so supportive of almost the majority of the instructors. No, I probably can't say the majority. A few of the instructors have their own businesses as well, and you're always supportive of that. It's never felt like a competition, and it's really rare to get in a culture like that where you can do your own thing and still work, and it's not feeling like we're in competition with each other. We're doing our thing. So it was exciting for me to have the opportunity. But you're right. That's how I saw it on the chart. And I was like, really? She's gonna go full time? Oh, we're going a full time position. This might work. Let's talk about this a little bit. And then to hear you say to me, you know, as you were thinking through it and whatnot, I think you were a little bit shocked that I was actually interested. Because when I initially said it, you're like, you are? I think this would be the next perfect role for you. And I was like, okay. And then here goes the selfish part. I really didn't have to interview for it. And that was great for me. I was burnt out on interviewing. So I was like, I really didn't have to interview for it because I was already a part of it, right? So it just worked. It's just that sort of next level promotion where I could do even more, understand the business even more and whatnot. But okay, we're going to go into what scared us after the fact, but it has been challenging. There has been their challenges as we've been doing this, right? I don't think it was as smooth as me moving into the program manager position. This one has been a little bit more bumpy, but we're still good. It's just been a little bit different.
Well, and I felt like the program manager from a business perspective it was like there was a safeness in having you work that 5 to 10 hours a week was a safe kind of level, or it was an incremental upgrade from a budget perspective, right? Whereas bringing you on full time, like you are my first time full-time employee. You came in with a very fair, but also like bigger salary than I've, paid for anyone, and makes perfect sense. But also like it was scary for me. It actually still feels a little scary for me. I'm sure you can hear the energy of it. So I was like, what if I hire this person and then like something happens and we can't sustain the role? Or what if, there's just all the what ifs came up for me for sure. So like that was part of what scared me was that, but also I think my tendency to avoid conflict. And I knew that like in a contractor role, even though we have a great relationship, like there's just a difference that happens between a contractor role and a full-time employee, where I knew I needed to express what I really wanted and be clear about what I really wanted, or correct if something, went off. And I just needed to hold myself to being really proactive with that communication. So I would say one of the things I was scared of before was just not doing that, right? And then feeling like I was burying resentments or things like that. So that's more of a tip for like I feel like we've had so many conversations, and like we prioritized that before. Like you didn't interview, but we had like a 2-hour conversation where we talked about what our motivations were, what we were scared about, and what we were going to do to overcome it. Like we had these big conversations that I think set us up for success, and continue to invest in those conversations on an ongoing basis, because it doesn't work any other way. Yeah.
I 100% agree. Some of those conversations are hard conversations too, because one of the things that I think scared me was, again, I was leaving this job that I've been in for 15 and a half years, right? And I'm making a massive career pivot. And what I say by that is I'm going into a totally different role, totally different industry, which is fine. But I've been working in it. But it was a risk because you don't know what you don't know, and there's a safety that you have working for a Fortune 500 company versus working for a smaller company where you're the first time full-time employee, right? And so there's financial considerations and all those sort of things that you have to take into consideration, and trade-offs and things that you have to think about. But to me, it was more about what I've learned is there's nothing better than having peace and really enjoying the environment you work in. So it doesn't make sense to work in an environment where you feel lousy all the time. You don't like to get up and go to work because you're just getting a paycheck. And I'm so over that at this point. I want to work in an environment where I can thrive. And this is a little bit different because for me, when my previous roles, okay, I have a certain function that I've been over, and that's it. I am like over multiple things in this COO role, right? I remember telling you point blank, Laura, I do not want to be over technology. I don't want to deal with your technology. I don't want to troubleshoot the technology. I don't want to do technology. And it's not that I'm scared of technology. It's just that I know in my own business, I manage all of my tech. And so I know what that takes and what that is, right? And I just didn't think I had the bandwidth to do more of that, right? Whereas I'm now looking at sales, I'm looking at projections, I'm looking at forecasting, I'm looking at strategic initiatives, I'm managing projects, I'm doing work, I'm writing standard operating procedures, I'm creating process models, right? I'm leading all the project calls, I'm leading all the ops teams calls, I'm leading the instructor meeting calls. And so it was all of this other stuff. And now, granted, I have a learning curve, because I don't understand how everything is set up and bridging the gap and understanding what it takes to drive the blueprint. Like the launch was very eye-opening. What it takes to launch the blueprint, right? All the different promotionals and things that you do. And even though I understand the concepts, because I do a lot of this in my own business, it's not my business. I didn't create it. And so I have this learning curve. So the thing that was really rough for me, especially the last couple of months, was I feel like I've gone into entry-level mindset again, because I worked in a company where I knew the stakeholders, I knew the culture, I knew how to get the information I needed, I knew who to talk to. If I didn't know the answer, I automatically knew who to go to. I knew where to look. And that's a little bit different with what I'm doing now for Director of Operations, right? Now I'm like, okay, so where do I find this information? Who do I reach out to? I pretty much know who I reach out to, but it's just finding the information and putting the stuff together and understanding that. In addition, making sure I'm not dropping the ball on anything that needs to get done for the day, right? Which is a lot of balancing. And I do believe I've gotten better. I still think there's work to be done though, because I'm trying to, again, with the learning curve, I'm documenting a lot of things. So that takes time. And then, customer support and all that takes time. So it's just, I'm trying not to be too hard on myself either, be too critical of myself, because it's only been since I started in April. So, it hasn't been, I've only been here for 3-4 months. So it's not like I've been doing this for a while, but so I try not to be too critical of myself, but it has definitely been just a different mind shift, a mental shift. And do I regret any of it? No. Are there times when I've been disappointed on how things went and what's happened? Of course. And that was even when I worked in my corporate job, of course. But you just gotta, I think for me, it hurts more when you're in a culture that you really, really love and you have like that loyalty and respect for someone and you feel like you've let them down because of something you've missed, right? For me, when I worked in my corporate job, we were missing stuff all the time. So that's just a part of the culture. So it was just like, we missed this one again. Okay, so how are we going to fix it, right? We all jump on a call. But this one was a little bit different because we're a pretty well-built machine and the things that I knew. And so I'm coming into something I don't know that is typically a well-oiled machine, and we messed up some parts of it, right, as we're learning. So that was the hard part, I think, for me to figure out, like, how could I have stopped that from happening? Well, I don't know how I could have stopped that from happening because I'm juggling 15 other things. I don't know how I could have made that any better or whatnot.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, I have the same questions around, I mean, I think on the learning curve part, I would say, because we also had some other team transition, right? And so we lost that knowledge, that background knowledge. So that from a CEO perspective required more from me than I was expecting. Because in my mind, like, oh, it's just so clear. We've been talking about this for a while, or it's documented. And then I would feel that way. And then I would get in a meeting with, you know, you and other team, and it would be very apparent to me it wasn't as clear as it felt in my head. Right. And that we did need to talk through things. And so it makes sense to me that things got like, this doesn't even feel quite like the right word. Just like there were things that or challenges that popped up, and some of them just happened. And I think what really stood out to me though was how you led the team to figuring out how to problem solve and troubleshoot, and kept that positive culture in place, because there was a few times when I had a little bit of like frustration too, and you were able to hold the energy of the positive culture, which is something I usually really pay attention to holding the energy for. And that was unexpected for me, to be able to like relax a little bit around always needing to hold that energy, and to have somebody who can also hold that energy, or at this point, like, Laura, I've got this, you just go do whatever you need to do to get yourself right. And like, you know, I'll take care of this. And so I'm still like learning how to, I feel like, shift out of feeling like I need to hold both energetically the company and all the things that need to get done. Because my way of managing all the things that needed to be done, you know, was very different than yours. Yours is much more methodical, right? And much more like action based, and that's what's going to help us grow going forward, not me having it all in my head and like thinking things through. So, but there's a transition period as you go through that, and we're in that right now in the thick of it, and we've gone through a lot of it. I'm sure there's still more to come. But what I like, it's exciting to me because I know it's so like what's on the other side is so worth it. And we have built already a much stronger company because of it. And we're continuing to get stronger because of it. So
100% agree. Yeah. It was a little bit, no matter what challenge we had, yeah, we definitely rose above it, and we worked well together. So I think I can read you pretty well, to where I know where your energy is at the time, and I have to offset it. So I think we offset each other good too. Like if I'm having a day, or you're having a day because of things that are going on, or for example, when I had COVID, right, it was sort of like, okay, everybody leave Paula alone because she can't function, because she really can't. And we're going to handle this until she comes back, right? And we do that for each other all the time. We give each other that sort of space to be able to have your moments where you're not 100% at your optimal self, because we're human. And I do think that's great. And because of that culture, that's what makes a difference. And, you know, that's one thing I think we should mention here too, because I've talked about it quite a bit. Culture makes all the difference in the world. And the last two instructors we hired, one of the items that they both brought up consistently was they wanted to be a part of our culture. So what I would love to hear from you that might help other organizations or corporations is, how on earth did you build this culture? It's like the optimal culture you want to work in. And I'm not just saying this because I work for you. It really is. It's like everybody respects each other. We know what the expectations are. We know what your vision is. We know what your values are, and we continue to review them every single month. And so we keep that front of mind. We know the type of environment you want to create. We want the interactions to be as positive energy as possible. Even with challenging situations and scenarios, we still try and keep it positive. How did you build that? How did you create that culture? Because I think a lot of companies want to create it and they don't know. And you have diversity on your team. Can I also throw that in there? You have diversity on your team. You have diversity from a ethnicity, from a gender, from an age, from a skill set, from an industry. I mean, like, how did you build that?
I wish I could like give you the 3-step or 10-step formula. Like I honestly, like I've asked myself this question because you've asked me this before and I'm like, I don't know. Like, which is, but I would say if you called out the values, I think that was a key piece, but we really only got those written down like 3 years ago. So I feel like those were a like formalization and recognition of like these are the values that have been in place in this company for a while, and like now we can share them and talk about them. um I if I had to identify something, I would say maybe it's showing up with authenticity with people and not trying to be somebody I'm not, and being really clear about what the business is for and why we're doing what we're doing. Like that's always been really clear to me. The people that we're serving, the mission that we have to help people really build a practical skill set. And I feel like that and the transformations we see people go through really does gel the team, because they feel like they're part of something that's bigger. Like you mentioned it right at the beginning, like this is meaningful work, right? It was like an outcome, you were giving back. So yes, you're profiting, you're obviously everybody on the team is getting paid for what they do, hopefully feels like that's a fair compensation, but you're also doing work that feels meaningful and has a positive outcome. And that was important to me when I started the business, is that I was doing work that mattered to me, because I had left a corporate job where I felt like the work I did really didn't have an outcome that I cared about. And then you layer a toxic environment on top of that. And it's like, why am I spending all my time doing something I don't enjoy for an outcome that doesn't matter to me and being treated like crap? Right. So like, I knew I wanted the antithesis of that. I had no idea it would become what we have today, but it was like the impetus behind starting Bridging the Gap. And it's really been just one step at a time. Like how do I make this decision in a way that fulfills that vision? And I would say, I guess that's the other piece of it. It's been very incremental, right? It's not been like the vision has been there, but like the vision has expanded, and it's just been like, how do we deal with this challenge in front of us with the tools and the people we have, and bring my best to it, not not like some grand scheme every single time, right? And so there's places where we've made corrections in the culture, like we made corrections in certain team members, and we've made corrections in how we hire instructors, because we had some great fits and some not so great fits. So like also just being able to make those corrections when you see it's not a good fit, and to kind of see the truth of that. And those are some of the hardest decisions that I've had to make, to be honest. But often they are the most impactful as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I will say for you, Paula, like you were a big part of that instructor hiring process, which to me, it does define a lot of our culture, like how we hire for instructors. I also think how we hire has helped create diversity, because it creates a very level playing field. Everybody is assessed according to the same rubric, using the same questions. It's very standardized. So there's this like level playing field that helps take unconscious bias out of the process, so that the most qualified candidates end up getting hired. And that has organically led to a lot of diversity on the team. That's my perception of how we've created diversity. It hasn't been like a strategic thing. I feel like there's probably a desire there, but it hasn't been like, oh, I need to hire this person to feel like, we're representing, that, because that gets, then that's not how people want to be treated anyways. I don't think anybody wants to be, the person who represents this specific thing on a company. You want to be hired because you're qualified, and that's what that process does.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, 100% agree. It's been, wow, we have done a ton of work over the last few years.
Yeah.
On just how we make sure that everything we do is done with integrity and credibility. And though, even if people don't necessarily understand it or agree, that's okay. But I know I can go to bed or look at myself in the mirror knowing we're doing our due diligence and we've done the right thing. And we're not for everybody, but for those that engage and, participate. It's been a great community,
Yeah.
and it's been great work that's been done. And being in this role, if there are other business analysts out there, or even project managers, I mean, I'm a living witness right here on how you pivot, right? So I've been in many different industries. I started my career as a software engineer back in the late 90s, and then I was a help desk analyst. Then I was a business analyst when it wasn't even known at that time. So they called me an integration specialist, and I formally got trained and was a business analyst. And then I've just moved into so many different industries and so many different roles, and it all started. I personally feel I just had business analysis skill set in my DNA. It always came easy to me. It wasn't really hard. When I did the formal training, I was like, oh, this is easy, when I watched other people really struggle. Making an ERD or a use case diagram or wireframes was really easy to me. It just made sense to me. And so, but I've been able to take all of these skills and build my own company and it started out as event planning. So that's where the project management came in, right? And I was able to do my own company, and I've rebranded myself multiple times to where I am today. And it's all using the project management and business analysis skills that I've had, with the technical skills as well. But it's all of that's been transferable, not knowing back then that I would be in a company, well, CEO of my own company and DOO of another company in the business analysis space, right? Serving BAs, serving project managers, and not knowing that at that time. It's kind of funny how life does that, but it's been, you can do it. You don't have to necessarily be in a BA role. You don't have to stay in a BA role. You can serve business analysts in so many different ways, and you can use the skills in so many different ways. And that's what's been great about this. I've been able, now it's not like, I don't really do instructor hours. I do some webinars. I don't do the teaching webinars. I'm not doing the teaching anymore. I'm not reviewing workbooks unless it's second level review. That's what the team's doing. I'm strategic. To me, it's more like the strategic leadership sort of role, which is fun that I get to do. Some days not so much, but most days it is, right? There's some days it's a little bit challenging than others, but it's still the goal, and the culture is what keeps me going. I mean, if I mess up, I would rather mess up in this company than mess up somewhere else, because I feel like it's more of a grace that you get a little bit, right? Unless you keep doing the same thing over and over again, but it's more that grace. And even when we have those days that have been challenging, and we're human, we have our emotions, we have those things, we're always able to come back. We bounce back relatively quick. I mean, we'll bounce back either in a couple of hours or by the next day. It just depends on when the scenario happens, but we bounce back pretty quick, and then we get back on, okay, so what do we need to do to make sure this doesn't happen in the future, right? And so it's just the way we work really well together. And what's also amazing is how we are both pretty savvy. Even if we're having those scenarios, we got to do a webinar. We can get on that webinar and we'll be just as happy and positive as all get out. Though we just had a challenging scenario that hit, but nobody will ever see it because we're just on there, and we're back. We bring that
show
energy
must
back,
go on.
and I think it's great. Yeah, the show. Yeah, exactly. It must go on. And again, to your point, if either one of us are at a point where we need that break, we both know that, and we can give that, right? If you're not up to it, I'll be like, there you go. Do what you need to do. I've got this. I'll take care of it. And we just keep it moving and give each other that space that's needed. So it's been great. The first 4 months has been great. There were a couple of days, again, we had some challenges and stuff like that, but we worked through them.
Yeah.
And that's
so
it.
Tell me about the best part, right? Because we've talked kind of about the challenging and the scary. I feel like, not that we've dwelled on the negative, but part, like, what's the best part of having made this move? Like, what do you miss?
So the best part, let's talk about that. So one of the best is the flexibility, the time flexibility. So let me tell you, when I worked in my day job, I was on meetings all the time. I mean, it was like, I swear we had meetings just to figure out when the next meeting was going to be. It was just constant meetings to where I didn't feel like I was able to be productive. What I love is how we have it structured. We don't have meetings on Monday mornings, and we very rarely have a meeting on a Friday at all. So I feel like I have some days where are just work days, And then we are very intentional on the type of meetings that we have and how many, right? So if we institute another meeting, is there another meeting we can get rid of? Because now that's being captured in this meeting that we're implementing. So the flexibility of time in my calendar has been great, where I don't feel like if I have a doctor's appointment, is the end of the world. Like I have to rush through my doctor's appointment because I have to be on this call, because if Paul is not on this call, we can't have the call. I don't feel that sort of pressure. So the flexibility of time, the culture has been so freeing. So I don't feel as stressed and as tense. I get up, come into my office, I do my work. After I exercise or eat breakfast or what have you, or eat breakfast while I'm doing my work. But I just get it and I do my thing. I have control of my schedule and how I can work. And then the ability to just take time for myself, right? There was, again, got done with the launch, and it was really interesting when you said to me last Friday, well, Paula, we've been working really hard these last couple of weeks. If you want to head out early, because I had Monday off, on Friday, do that. I'm not used to that. I'm not used to having that. I was like, really? I can leave early? That's a thing? I can do that and not be bothered and not feel bad about it and not feel guilty about it. And it was great because I checked out at 1 and nobody sent me anything because I was checking. Nobody sent me anything until I came back in the office on Tuesday. And it was cool to be able to just take that time and do that. So just the culture, the time flexibility, the ability, you allow me to do my own thing. You do not micromanage me. Like you're not looking, okay, is Paula online? What is Paula doing today? And whatnot. Are there things that you're looking at to make sure that we don't miss? Yes, but I think that's normal because you're trying to make sure that these things that we may not know that has been checked in the past, they're getting checked. So to me, that makes sense. I don't look at that as micromanagement. I'm just looking at that as transition items, right? But you don't really do that. And so and you always ask me this is nothing I'm not used to either. You always say, are you available for this meeting at such and such time? Usually people just put the meeting on my calendar, don't ask me anything, and that's it, right? But you actually ask, so can you do this meeting? And I'm like, well, Laura, if you require me to be on the meeting, just tell me I need to be on the meeting, right? But that's not how you roll because you don't know what else I have on my calendar. You don't know if I'm doing a quarterly connect with an instructor. You don't know if I'm having a meeting with another ops team member. You don't know. So the simple fact that you asked me is kind of cool. How we do meetings is really cool too. I don't have that stress of I have to, give up something to be able to do everything. So that's been some of the exciting things. I don't have the stress that I had. I do have some stress, like you naturally have stress as you do work, but I just don't have the amount of stress I used to have. And I feel like I'm more productive where I can create things. I know Monday morning and Fridays, I can at least have those days to create. And my Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays sometimes are busy, but I still have days to be productive. And I like that. And I hope that doesn't ever change because I kind of like that flow.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I'm so it's so gratifying to hear that. And also as a business owner to have been in a position to create a position for somebody else to have that it's pretty awesome. So I will say that's one of the things I like the most about as we've grown with Bridging the Gap, both for this opportunity, but also instructors, just being able to see people get excited about the work and create these opportunities that didn't exist before because our business is supporting that. And that has been really exciting to me. One of the things I'm most excited about with having you in the DOO role is so funny that you mentioned, you're saying time, but I'm there was a shift when I can actually just if I need to talk to Paula tomorrow, most likely we're going to be able to talk tomorrow, right? And so where before that whole needing to plan ahead or only feeling like I could use so much of your time because you had obviously other commitments, but I knew I just had this sense of your full energy in our company was going to make such a big difference, and it has. And just seeing the level of documentation and standardization and the resources that are coming out of that, it feels for the first time, everything that's flowing through my head and out that we're talking about, things are getting created from that, right? It's not just that work is getting done. but like also it's getting put in place in a way that other people could do it if they needed to, or it's being improved along the way. And it's been really cool to see that unfold as well. And I know we're just getting started because obviously there has been a learning curve. And so when you think about what's going to be possible 6-12 months from now, when the learning curve is in the past and we're like creating new things, right? And I think that our synergy is really going to enable a lot of exciting things as we go forward.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting as well, because I manage quite a few different projects. And it's just one of the things I love that we do too is I'm like, okay, Laura, so we have all this going on. Let's think about prioritizing again, because I want to make sure I'm not dropping the ball on anything, right? But it's just being able to have those conversations and reevaluating and reprioritizing, and the ability to do so and to do it quite quickly and whatnot, and to have a team, a tech team, a marketing team that's just really big on delivering the value that we want to bring to the customers we serve. It's just amazing to watch. And so, and again, no matter what, the team it's just a great team to work with, because everybody's just so motivated and positive and optimistic and just really passionate about the work that we do in the company. And that's just awesome. It's awesome to see. And I don't ever want that. If there's one thing that I don't ever want to change, I don't ever want that culture to change, because the culture is what's going to drive the right people in. And we just want to make sure that we continue to keep that culture going, because there's something about the culture, because everybody mentions it. That's the reason why they want to come to BTG, because of the culture. And so it feels like a family, and we are a family. So a true family, we're not just saying we're family. We truly are family. I mean, we truly look out for each other, and we want to make sure everybody's okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, I feel like we have probably talked way longer than we were expecting to in this interview. But do you have any last words that you want to share before we close things out?
I can't think of anything outside of thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for giving me a position in life where I actually enjoy working all day now. So it doesn't feel like I'm actually working, though, because I enjoy what I'm doing. So even when I'm done with Bridging the Gap and I move into my own company, the same energy is still there, because I love what I do. It's not like, oh, I'm finally doing what I love in my company. So thank you for creating that opportunity and having the faith that I was the right person and the right fit for that, even though I did question it a couple of times, couple of weeks, but we pulled through it and everything's good. So I do want to just say thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, thank you for stepping in. And I feel like your decision to say yes to that program manager role, which I know was, I remember that moment, that got us to where we are today, because that really allowed our relationship to grow and expand. And so I know that was a big thing to step into. And I just appreciate you stepping in every step of the way. And if there's another business owner out there, I think, maybe the takeaway is get really clear on what you want in the role and why it's important to you, and always building those relationships, because you just never know who on your team is going to be the next person that can be elevated. So
Agreed.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. I hope that you found this valuable. If you have questions about it, feel free to leave a comment below wherever you're watching this or reading this, and we'd love to hear from you.
Exactly.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thank you,
All right.
Paula.
Bye, everyone. Bye, Laura.